to call for a vote on the approval of the Charter of the United Nations
for every member of the human family.
From 1945 to 2025, the United Nations has been committed to maintaining international peace and security, developing friendly relations among nations, solving international problems, and encouraging respect for human rights. Is this path harder now than it was 80 years ago? The answer, it depends. It depends on devotion, ambition, courage, persistence, and in hopefulness. 8 decades of service, a future worth fighting for.
Today here we are at Gaza Seaport. This is the place where we used to run away from life. We used to come and sit by the sea. Our children would be swimming. Fishermen would be fishing. It would be a typical summer day. But now, everything changed.
Sarah Al-Saka is the first female surgeon in Gaza. On September 30th, 2023, Sarah finished her postgraduate degree in Egypt and returned to Gaza. Only 4 days after returning, the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict erupted.
I checked my phones and I found that the head of my department was calling everyone to come and support at the hospital because of the overwhelming number of injuries. So I ran to the hospital. I spent the whole day in the operating theater, operating one patient after the other until the next morning came. And then I started to realize that this is not as anything that we have seen before.
Sarah and her colleagues worked continuously for 36 days until Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest hospital in the Gaza Strip, was besieged for the first time.
At the beginning of this war, people were displaced to Shifa Hospital and to other hospitals as well. They thought that they would be safe if they came to the place that treat patients, a place that is protected by international humanitarian law. But they were wrong.
It's during that period Sarah became a de facto reporter on the Gazan medical effort, sharing videos and reels that resonate like no others.
I needed people to feel for themselves what was happening and to do something to stop it. But with time, it became emotionally exhausting. I started to feel like nothing was really changing, no matter how much I shared. And even worse, I noticed that people interacted less, became numb, and I couldn't do it anymore.
In March 2024, Al-Shifa Hospital was under second siege. At least 400 people were killed, and the hospital was left completely non-functional.
Look around us. We're sitting in a place that, after the Israeli incursion, Palestinians, civil defense, and first responders, and MOH people have dug a mass grave out of this yard. The yard that we have been taking a breath, the yard that we have been taking our breaks in, now we can't even look at it because we would think about the graves that were buried here, about the number of people that have been killed and buried.
Like others, Sarah was forcibly displaced. Despite the devastation, she joined Doctors Without Borders as a medical activity manager, and it was during that time something inside her changed.
As a surgeon, I could save few lives each day, maybe 3, maybe 4, a handful of surgeries. But when I helped open one primary healthcare center, and when I helped expanding hospital bed capacity, I learned that I can help hundreds of lives a day. That's when I understood the higher the position, the wider the reach. And that's when I said yes to the UN.
There are now over 10 UN agencies working in Gaza. Sarah joined OCHA, or the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The organization is like a command center, deciding who does what, when, and where, so as to ensure that the flurry of response efforts is as efficient as possible, without duplication, and that aid is prioritized according to needs. But as the situation worsens, they are increasingly prevented from doing so.
This is the family that we are trying to reach, that we are trying to coordinate since yesterday. They're still alive under the rubble. Yesterday we submitted a tactical coordination and it got denied. We submitted another coordination request for today and they just got the approval. قرب على البيت بس تنزلوش من السيارات. بس ناخد موافقة تنزلوا من السيارة، خليك مكانك. مازن بيقدروا ينزلوا من السيارات؟
One approval after another, a 5-minute journey took more than a day to complete. And when the rescue team finally got access, they found no signs of life.
I have no idea why should we ask for permission to save lives. I can't understand it and I can't accept it.
With more than 30 displacement orders in place, people in Gaza have been squeezed into a fragmented 12% of the Strip, and the UN agencies were not spared. Restricted access also exacerbated the shortage of supplies. Before the war, with the effort of OCHA and other groups, about 500 to 600 trucks of aid entered Gaza each day. But since the war began, supply runs went through highs and lows, even coming to a complete stop during an 11-week blockade beginning in March of 2025.
We then had to daily conduct this impossible exercise of basically looking at what we have and seeing how we can prioritize it and make sure that it goes to only the most dire needs and stretch it for as long as possible. So whereas before, if you went to a community kitchen, you might get rice with some, beans or something else, or maybe some spinach. Eventually it just became, like soup, which was mostly water because they were trying to stretch, whatever they had.
In May, the Israeli and U.S. governments bypassed the United Nations and launched a distribution system. The UN once had 400 distribution sites in Gaza, while this new program has only 4, and they are all in the no-go zone declared by Israel. Since then, attacks on people seeking aid have continued, with fatalities reportedly exceeding 1,800.
It's kids, it's children.
It is weaponized hunger, it is forced displacement, and it's a death sentence for people just trying to survive.
Worse still, the basic safety of humanitarian personnel is no longer guaranteed, with reports indicating that nearly 1,600 health workers and 500 aid workers have been killed in Gaza since the war began, including more than 300 UN staff members.
Health workers should never be a target, and yet we're here today digging up a mass grave of first responders and paramedics in their uniforms, with their gloves on. They were here to save lives. Instead, they ended up in a mass grave. Their vehicles, their ambulances, UN vehicles, civil defense vehicles are crushed and dumped, covered in sand, next to us. It's an absolute horror.
Despite the immense dangers and obstacles, the UN continues to deliver desperately needed aid to Gaza, but describes humanitarian operations as being on the brink of collapse. It has called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the opening of all border crossings, and the resumption of consistent, frequent, large-scale deliveries.
Yet, due to divisions among the permanent members of the Security Council, draft resolutions calling for a ceasefire have been repeatedly vetoed.
The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
This has shattered the already fragile trust Gazans have in the UN.
We grew up listening to our grandmothers and grandfathers tell the stories of the Nakba. Back when they were forced to flee their homes in 1948, UNRWA was created in response to their displacement. It built schools, clinics, issued ration cards, gave structure to life in exile. And somewhere deep down inside, we held into that idea that that day of return might come. The UN would help, that justice would not be delayed forever. But over the years, that belief was tested, especially now in Gaza. The humanitarian agencies on the ground are doing everything they can, often under impossible conditions. But the political side of the UN is failing. The Security Council has failed Gaza. Gaza is not just a humanitarian crisis. It is a test. It's a test for the UN itself. If it cannot respond to the gravest violations of international law here, then its global relevance is at risk.
Facing a devastating situation, Sarah remains committed to the UN's principles and mission, and she is not alone. When the war began, OCHA had just a 4-person team on the ground. In spite of all the frustrations, that team has now grown to 20.
We have many young people on our team. It's encouraging to see enthusiasm and that drive, because they're only there for one thing, and that is to serve the people in Gaza.
I know people who were days away from traveling to their new job or to continue their education or just simply to get married. Everything we built, everything we have hoped for, everything we have dreamed about have been taken away from us. So yes, my life was interrupted. But what's happening here is the collapse of an entire generation's future. So we're still working and we're still pushing ourselves to keep trying every single day until this insanity stops.
共创和平。